I guess you could say I started my World of Warcraft journey a little too late. About one Cataclysm too late. When Cataclysm came out in 2010, I was 12 years old, wide-eyed, clueless, and convinced that West Fall was the hardest zone in the entire game. I didn't understand quests, I didn't read tooltips, heck, I didn't even think we had guides back then. Most of my exploration ended up with me being lost somewhere outside Goldshire, wondering where all the cool blue and purple armor drops. That was my version of Azeroth. The world that was already changed by Cataclysm. The original world, the one that built the most popular MMO, was gone before I even got to see it. Time moved on, expansions came and went, and eventually, I drifted away from the game. Because the more it held my hand, the less I felt like I was actually adventuring. Everything became faster, easier, and emptier. But now, Classic gives me a chance to finally step back in the world that I missed. To slow down, to take it all in, one quest, one fight, one story at a time. There's something grounding about going slow again. Taking on quests that I have no idea where it's actually going to lead me, reading the text, and actually listening to what this world has to say. If you're here for nostalgia, or just to watch me pull 5 mobs by accident, you're in the right place. This is where my series, on my journey through Azeroth, begins. When I first played World of Warcraft, I chose a human warrior. There's something about starting as a human in Northshire that just feels like home. So this time, I'm doing it again. A clean slate. Same class, same race, just a slightly older me behind the keyboard. I spent a while on the character screen, trying to make a character that I was happy with. After a lot of time, I finally made up my mind. Now that the hard part was over, next came the name. My girlfriend just happened to get me a drink from Starbucks, and I couldn't really think of anything else, so I figured, why not? I typed in the name and immediately got hit with unavailable. So I did what every player does. Backspace, add a fancy letter, and boom, name accepted. As I loaded in, I thought about how this time I actually want to finish what I started. To hit level 60. I looked around the starting area, sunlight blazing through the trees, music fading in, and for a second, it felt like I was stepping into the past. This time, I'll make it, I told myself. No sidetracks, no skipping quests, just me, the road, and the journey ahead. I started my journey in Azeroth with a sword in my hand and some tough jerky in my bags. Upon arriving to Northshire, the guard out front sent me to speak with Marshal McBride, the man who oversees new recruits. He greeted me, handed me a new task, sent me straight into the field. My first job? Deal with the kobolds outside the abbey. Before hunting kobolds, I ran into Egan Peltskinner. He needed help with some wolves. I figured it'd be good practice, a warm-up. A few fights later, I realized how fragile my level 1 warrior really was. By the end, I hit level 2, picked up a shield, and learned my first real lesson, patience. Then came the kobolds, small candle-hoarding miners, shouting every time I got close. They weren't very strong, and I took them out quickly. After clearing out the field and taking their candles just out of spite for yelling at me, I made my way back to Marshal McBride and was given another kobold killing quest. While picking up the new quest, something strange happened. I got a random whisper. Some guy asked me to invite his other character for gold. I had no idea what this meant. But I wasn't about to look like a noob, so I said yes. Free money, right? He joined, said nothing, and left. No gold, just silence. I guess I wasn't meant to have it in the first place. A few minutes later, while I was working on some kobolds, another player traded me a glowing red weapon out of nowhere. Turns out, it was the same fiery weapon I saw someone using earlier. When I asked about it, they said some random gave it to me too. So now I'm holding what's basically a haunted community sword. I took it as a sign of good luck, I think. Upon finishing up my quest, I returned to Marshal McBride. He wanted me to go deeper into the valley this time, into the cobbled mine. The tunnels were narrow, filled with noise and shadows. Every corner had another kobold waiting for me to take out. Upon fighting all the way to the back, I spotted a chest and sprinted for it. Unfortunately, there was a kobold I had to fight to get to it, and another player right next to me. I threw everything I could at this cobble to try and get to the chest first, but for some reason, this cobble decided to start dodging all of my attacks. Luckily, in the end, I was able to get the chest though. Clearing out the mines, bags full of candles, I was ready to head back to Marshall McBride, confident to take on whatever task was next. Oh, was I wrong. Upon turning in the cobble quest, I went outside and a guard asked me to deal with the defeats across the river. I thought it'd be just like the cobbles. I was sadly mistaken. I ran up, pulled one, then 2 more came in. Next thing you know, I was swinging for my life. That's when I realized Northshire wasn't the safe training ground I thought it was. Luckily, by the end, I walked away with a cool new sword that I picked up from one of the Defeat's enemies. Before leaving, I was told to help out Millie Osworth. She needed help recovering some grapes that she left in the field. It was a small quest, but it felt like something worth doing. I also had another quest to take out the Defeat's leader, somewhere in that area, so I figured, why not? Then I saw him. Garrick Padfoot, the Defeat's leader. And he had backup. He fought hard, but I had the fiery blade in my bag and some confidence. A few swings later, it was over. My first real victory. After turning in my final quest, I waved goodbye to Marshall McBride and said goodbye one last time, and I was off to Goldshire to start my next quest. Then I walked down the road out of Northshire. The sun broke through the trees, the abbey faded away behind me, and with that fiery blade in my bag, my journey truly began. I left Northshire behind, following the road south until I finally reached Goldshire. It was a cozy little town where half the population lives at the inn, and the other half send you to die in a mine. Marshall Duggan greeted me with a smile and immediately handed me a list of errands. Explore the mines, collect candles, and gather gold dust. Northshire was the tutorial. Goldshire, that's what the game stops holding your hand. Before I even reached the cave, I found another chest. I must be extremely lucky. Inside the mine, I quickly learned this wasn't Northshire anymore. The goblins hit harder, and there were more of them. 2 of them almost made me experience my first death, but somehow I survived, and even looted my first green item. It was a recipe. Not exactly a weapon, but I'll take it. By the time I crawled out of the mine, my bags were completely full. I had to leave loot behind. It was a painful experience for any adventurer. Back in town, I checked the vendor, but I couldn't afford a single bag. That's why I learned something. I was broke. One quest that I picked up earlier sent me to Stormwind, so I made the trip. While turning it in, out of nowhere I received an invite to a guild. They gave me bags, a tabard, even some advice. They were good people. It reminded me why World of Warcraft isn't just like any other game. Sometimes it's not about the quest or the grind. It's about the players willing to help a stranger. On my way back to questing, I stopped by a farm. They needed help with 3 things: kill a pig named Princess, collect boar meat for a pie, and find a missing necklace. That necklace turned out to be in the hands of a cobble named Goldtooth. He was tougher than he looked. I managed to take him down, but not before suffering my first death. It was humbling, but hey, at least I got the necklace. Then came the Murlocs. I was told to collect ingredients for a potion. Easy enough. I had no idea what I was getting into. But on the way I found a lake house. Inside were a dozen children just standing still, staring. No movement, no parents, just creepy background music. I left immediately, and I've never trusted that building again. After fighting through a ridiculous number of Murlocs, I found another chest in their camp. Turned in the quest, and decided I've had just about enough of Murlocs for one day. Following Marshall Duggan's orders, I scouted another mine further east. On the way, I saved a paladin who was about to die from kobolds. Not all heroes wear capes. Then I met guard Thomas. He wanted me to find his 2 missing men. When I found them, they were both already dead, probably killed by Murlocs. It was a sobering reminder that even peaceful Elwyn Forest has a dark side. And then, chaos. My first horrid encounter. A single player stormed Goldshire, attacking everyone, even Marshall Duggan. Some brave players tried to fight back. I, on the other hand, stayed on the sidelines, doing my best not to be seen. What else was I supposed to do? Throw a rock at him? While waiting for things to calm down, I headed to Eastvale Logging Camp, picking up quests to kill wolves, Murlocs, and gather lumber. Sounds easy, but no. The Murlocs were relentless. I had to team up with another adventurer, and together we killed about 50 of them, for 8 fins. This quest has got to be one of the most painstaking quests in the entire forest. Next up was Brackwell Pumpkin Patch. I finally tracked down Princess, the infamous pig, and after an epic fight, I came out victorious. Nearby, I found Deadtooth Jack in a rare spawn. I still had to collect some bandanas, so I figured why not. I spent 20 minutes trying to kill them, died multiple times, questioned my life choices, so I figured I'd just come back later when I was stronger. Upon returning to Goldshire, Marshal Duggan sent me to Westbrook Garrison. They needed help killing an enemy named Hogger. He was an elite, so I teamed up with another player and together we brought him down. After taking him down, I picked up a quest from a gnoll I had just looted. This quest was called The Collector. The quest turned out to be harder than I thought. The enemy I had to kill had 2 bodyguards, and they were all high level. Luckily, someone nearby jumped in to help. Without them, I would have been stuck on this quest. After finishing up all the forest quests, I decided to get some training and follow up on my warrior quest. So I headed to Stormwind and greeted my trainer for a new quest. It involved starting a bar fight. After punching a drunk, I was awarded with some new abilities to help me on my travels. Apparently that's what passes for professional warrior training around here. After receiving the new abilities, I was told to head back to Eastvale to receive my reward. Upon arriving to Eastvale, I was told to hunt down Deadtooth Jack, the same guy who gave me trouble earlier. This time, he didn't have backup. The fight was clean, satisfying, and I finally got my revenge. And my reward? A brand new green item sword. Before leaving Elwyn, I decided to make a quick trip to Stormwind, just to prepare for the road ahead. I figured I'd grab some cooking supplies, maybe learn a recipe or two. Then I saw the auction house prices. Apparently, wolf meat is some kind of luxury item in this game, so I thought to myself, that's one way I can buy some bags for my journey. I also asked my guild what they thought I could do to make some extra gold. They suggested I pick up herbalism and alchemy. Pick some flowers, make some potions, and get rich. Sounds easy enough. Before heading out into the next zone, I figured I should get a little bit more prepared. A little more bag space to work with. But bags don't exactly grow on trees, so there was only one thing left to do. Kill every wolf in Elwyn Forest. I stayed in Elwyn for a while, long enough that I started recognizing where all the wolves spawned in at. Every clearing, every patch of tall grass, I was there killing, looting, and having fun while doing it. Some wolves dropped meat, and some dropped green items. I didn't care at the end, I was just having fun with my new sword. But over time my bag started to get full and I was running out of room. By the end of it, I had 80 pieces of wolf meat, a handful of greens, and I leveled up. It was honest work. For the first time I felt ready to move on, not just as an adventurer, but as someone who can afford repairs and be able to buy cool gear. After stopping by the auction house to sell all my loot, I was richer, stronger, and ready for my next adventure. Next stop, Westfall. I left Elwyn Forest behind and stepped into Westfall. The green hills faded into dry, golden plains, quiet, windswept, and almost empty. I was immediately greeted by the Furlbrows, a couple of farmers that were on their way out of Westfall. Farmer Furlbrow asked me to help find his lost pocket watch that he had to leave behind on the farm as they were escaping from the Defees. His wife gave me a recipe and asked me to give it to the Saldines down the road, as well as gather some sacks of oats. The mood felt different here, like the land itself had given up. Abandoned farms, quiet roads, and the wind carrying nothing but the sound of empty homeland. Down at the Saldine farm, I handed out the recipe and received a grocery list in return. Vultures, gortus, okra, murloc eyes, all for one bowl of stew. The problem? Not a single gortusk in the entire zone seemed to own a liver. By the time I found enough, I'd wiped out half of the local population. Each fight dragged on. Vultures diving from above, boars charging at me, and murlocs screeching from the shoreline. A slow grind for ingredients that barely seemed worthwhile. Upon turn-in, the Saldines gave me their stew, and I got half my bag space back. Next up was that pocket watch. I found the Furlbrow's farm, but I didn't expect what I saw inside. A level 15 Defease named Benny Blanco. He wasn't alone. The place was crawling with bandits, all red bandanas and daggers ready. The fight was intense. Every swing was a race between my sword and his sword. Fortunately, and to my surprise, he went down rather quickly, and I found the pocket watch. After scouring what seemed like every field in Westfall, I was able to find all the sacks of oats I needed, and I returned to the Furrow Browse. The couple thanked me and gave me a new bag for my troubles. After heading further south, I received some quests to take out the defeats in the area. I hunted them down in the fields and gathered their red bandanas as proof. The sun burned down overhead. The fights blended together into one long blur of dust, sweat, and bandanas. After completing all the kills for the quest, I decided to move on to what was the most aggravating quest in the zone. The Gnolls. I'd received a quest to collect their paws back in Sentinel Hill, and you'd think that since they'd have 2 arms, these things would drop, but no, you'd be mistaken, just like I was. Every encounter felt like its own battle. Sometimes I'd fight one, only to have 2 more wander in. Horrible drop rates, long respawns, and half the zone was competing for the same mob. Not only were these things scarce, but if you pulled too many, you would surely die. Every kill felt like a gamble, and every victory earned me a little chance at encountering just one more paw. By the end, I finally completed the quest and returned to Sentinel Hill, exhausted but relieved. After all of that, I took a break and decided to head back to Stormwind. I checked my mail. Turns out that wolf meat that I sold made me rich. With all my new money, I started looking at some bags to help me with my space, and I also found a cool sword that should help me on my travels. While here, I also leveled up my cooking and decided to cook all the clam meat I got from the Murlocs earlier. For once, I didn't feel like I was broke anymore. For the first time since Northshire, I felt I was ready for what was next. When I returned, Westfall felt a little less lonely. Upon going back and killing more defeats, I joined a group doing the same quest. Together we took out all the defeats in the area and fought the Harvest Watchers. These Harvest Watchers were massive. Metal beasts that stomped through the fields, gears grinding as they swung their arms like clubs. I charged in, helping out my teammates wherever I could. It was chaos, but the good kind. The kind that reminds you why this world is alive. It was nice to be able to enjoy the game and have help from the community while questing. After turning in the last of my quests, I realized I'd done all I could here. Most of what was left was too high level. And when I asked my guild what to do next, they suggested I head to Lockmode Inn. So I did a quick search and found that I would have to head back to Stormwind and catch a train to Ironforge. Ironforge was beautiful. Massive halls, lava flowing from the ceilings, dwarves everywhere. I wandered around the city for a while, just taking it in. The forges, the sound of hammers, the general player base. It was cool to see another area just as crowded as Stormwind. It makes the game feel alive. Then I headed out of the city and east towards Lockmode Inn. It was cool to pass through the snowy environment and hear the wind howling like a desolate mountain zone. Eventually, the snowy peaks gave way to steep cliffs, and 2 massive statues guarded the entrance to Lockmode Inn. It felt like entering a new world. Relaxing, warming, and just like Elwyn Forest. I picked up my first local quest. Go kill some trogs. It was an unfamiliar enemy, but nothing I couldn't handle. Being a little over-leveled helped too. Each fight was quick, and I was able to complete the quest within a short time. They also dropped stone teeth, which I also needed for another quest. So it was nice to knock out both of them together. Honestly, Lockmode Inn was off to a solid start. After finishing that quest, I decided to take a break, not in-game, but to explore add-ons. I've seen other players using them and figured I'd give it a shot. I installed Questy to track quests on my map, Atlas Loot to see what drops in dungeons, and Auctionator for the auction house. It felt like I was upgrading, from clueless adventurer to organized professional. Now I could see everything on my map, quests and objectives. It was like discovering a whole new layer of the game. I headed back out to kill more trogs and started to get lucky. I found multiple chests and even pulled 3 green items in a row. It was like the game was apologizing for Westfall. Eventually I made it to a small village called Thelsamar. It reminded me of the Hobbit homes from The Lord of the Rings. The quest here sent me after kobolds and wildlife for cooking ingredients. At first it was smooth. Everything was way below my level, and I could pull a few at a time. But the drop rates, they were awful. 50 kobolds later, I still didn't have all the ears I needed. Eventually, I just gave up and moved on. Next, I got a quest from Mountaineer Stormpike to recover miner gear from an old mine. There were kobolds inside, so I doubled up my progress, doing both quests at once. Inside the tunnels, I fought kobolds while collecting the miner gear, and I was able to complete both of the quests. After turning those in, I went back to hunting wildlife, and somehow, that was even worse. I must have spent an hour going back and forth killing spiders and bears for all the quest drops. By the end, I was convinced the game was mocking me for thinking this zone was easy. After all that was said and done, I noticed something. Questy made everything too easy. It showed me where to go, what to kill, and what to pick up. And while it helped, it also killed the sense of discovery. So I made a decision and I uninstalled it. I decided to keep Atlas Loot and Auctionator since they didn't guide me. They more of just gave me information. With that, I ventured out again. As I was exploring, I found a quiet fishing hut down by the lake. I decided to take a break and started leveling my fishing there, just enjoying the view and the sound of the water. It was peaceful. One of those rare moments where you forget about the XP bar and leveling and just enjoy the world. When I was done, I realized something. I had no idea where to go next. Without Questy, I was completely lost. Only one quest in my log had directions, so I followed it south toward an excavation site. On the way, I saw some dwarves standing next to some TNT. I had no idea what they were doing, so I just kept walking. At the excavation site, I quickly found out it was far outside my level range after picking up a quest. So I set out to find a gnome named Bingles, who'd actually crashed his plane somewhere in Lochmod. After searching it up because I was completely hopeless, I found him. He asked me to recover some of his tools from the local trogs. Simple quest, right? Wrong. Every item was surrounded by trogs, and these were now my level. Each fight was a test of timing. Pull one too far, and two more followed. I died. A lot. Eventually, I ran into another player on the same quest. Together we fought our way through and finished it. It was by far the hardest quest in the entire zone, and I was happy to finally be done with it. After turning those in, I found a hunting lodge on the east side of the lake. The quest here came with time limits. Kill enough wildlife before the clock runs out. I didn't know who thought this was a good idea, but it was the most stressful questing I've done yet, and the whole time, I was getting picked on by some guy named Daryl. Once that was done, I was tasked with going after Ol Sooty, a level 20 elite bear. I was level 16. Thankfully, I found another player in chat and together we took him down barely. The fight was brutal. I was chugging potions like my life depended on it, and the other person in my party was fearing the bear just that way it wouldn't kill me. When we finally killed the bear, I took its head and I brought it to Daryl. I think it traumatized him. Probably made him regret ever knowing me. At this point, I decided I was done with Lochmod. Time to head back to Westfall. Lochmod was beautiful, frustrating, and full of surprises. It tested my patience, my luck, and my inventory space, but it was worth it. Every zone teaches something new, and Lochmod taught me to slow down, explore, and have fun. After trying to figure out where to go, I saw that my next quest was in the southern area of Westfall, in Dagger Hills. I finally found the Defees, and they were a bit higher level, but I was confident enough to handle them. The first few went smoothly, one at a time, clean fights, no issues. Then I got overconfident, and I pulled two. It quickly turned into me using all my abilities just to stay alive. Somehow, I managed to take them out, and after scouring up and down the hills, I was finally able to complete the quest. On my way out, I noticed a lighthouse far off the coast. It stood out, quiet and distant. I figured I'd check it out later. When I turned in the Defees quest, there was no follow-up. No next step. No clue where to go. Just Gyre and Stoutmantle looking at me. So after a quick search, I realized there were more quests at that same lighthouse I'd spotted earlier. So I headed out again, not realizing how long I'd actually be at the lighthouse area. When I arrived, the keeper gave me 3 quests. Clear the murlocs along the coast, collect some oil, and take out their leader, Murkai. It didn't take long to find him. He was level 20. He stood out from the rest of the murlocs, and he came straight for me the moment I stepped onto the beach. The fight was close. I had to use everything I had. One more hit, and I could have died. Luckily, at the last moment, he turned around and started running away, giving me my opportunity to take him down. The rest of the murlocs weren't much easier. They were everywhere, usually in groups, and half the time would end up running and pulling more. I spent a long time slowly clearing the beach, one pull at a time. At one point, I found a fisherman standing alone on the edge of the coast. No quest, just fishing. It was simple, but it made the world feel more alive. So I decided to join him for a bit. I fished my way down the coast between fights, found a few chests, picked up some greens, and enjoyed the sounds of the ocean. Then, while I was fishing, I just so happened to look up, and saw at least 10 murlocs running at me from the water. I didn't even have time to react. They surrounded me and it was over fast. Not my proudest death, but honestly it was bound to happen sooner or later. After that, I played it safe. I worked my way south, carefully clearing what I needed for the quest. The last step was gathering oil from the harvesters to power the lighthouse lamp. Compared to everything else, this part was simple. The enemies were much lower level and I cut through them easily. After turning everything in at the lighthouse, I leveled up. Finally, I was level 18, which meant I was finally able to wield my blue weapon that I was so patient to use. It felt like a good way to close my time out in Westfall. I headed back to Stormwind for training and to sell some loot. While there, I asked my guild chat if anyone could enchant my rare blue weapon. A fellow guild member replied right away and told me to help me out. When he met me, he looked at my gear for a second and said, "Hold on." A few minutes later, he came back from the auction house and opened up the trade window. Inside was a full set of new gear, all enchanted. I didn't know what to say. It was one of those moments that reminded me why I enjoy this community so much. The people here. They make the world feel real, and it's not every man for themselves. So big shout out to my guild, Top Soul. I couldn't have asked for a better group of teammates to help explore this game with. I made my way into Redridge Mountains from Elwyn Forest. It already felt nostalgic. I kind of missed Elwyn's peaceful fields, but this was new adventure territory. A guard greeted me as I entered the pass and told me to report to Lakeshire. As I crested the final hill, I got my first look at Lakeshire, a small, quiet town, nestled perfectly beside the water, reflections of the red cliff dancing across the lake's surface. It was beautiful. While I was picking up quests and getting to know the locals, a party invite popped up on my screen. I accepted it, figuring I could use some company, and seconds later, a whisper came in. Dead Mines? Just that one word. It is my first ever dungeon in World of Warcraft. And funny enough, it wasn't even here. It was back in Westfall. So I packed my things and began the journey back to Westfall, excited to try my first dungeon. When I got there, a few other guild members were already waiting. Turns out one of them, Tinkling, runs dungeons all day, every Monday on his stream, just helping out other guild members. Honestly, I thought that was awesome. And I was just grateful that they even invited me along. What I didn't expect though, was to do absolutely nothing. Tinkling told me just to stand back and to watch your XP bar, so I did. And then it happened. My bar shot up by half a level in seconds. I was stunned. I decided to stay for another run, half for the loot and half just to hang out with everyone. The energy was great and I was generally having fun watching it all unfold. After the runs, I stopped by Stormwind to turn in some of the quests that people had shared with me. Before I knew it, I was level 21. It happened so fast I didn't even process it at first. Then came another invite, this time for the Stockades. Another dungeon right here in Stormwind. I joined, but I'll be honest, something felt off. Standing around while others cleared everything, it reminded me too much of when I had Questy installed. It just felt like cheating. This series is about my journey through Azeroth, the struggles, the leveling, the small victories, so I decided to step away. I thanked them all, said my goodbyes, and quit the group, feeling clearer about what I wanted to do and what I wanted this adventure to be. Before heading back into Redridge, I had one last thing I wanted to do. That old Defease Brotherhood questline had been sitting in my log forever, and I felt like it was the right way to close out this chapter. This quest wanted me to speak with someone called Matthias Shaw in Stormwind, and from there, back to Westfall to hunt down a messenger. Now, I'd seen people complaining about this quest plenty of times in the game. Apparently, the messenger is impossible to find. Luckily, another player was doing it too. So we decided to team up, and after some searching we finally found him. We turned in the quest and chatted a bit and ended up deciding to keep playing together. Our next mission? Escorting the defeased trader to Moonbrook to find the entrance to the Dead Mines. Simple enough. I was higher level now, so it went pretty smoothly, but the atmosphere, marching that trader through enemy territory, it just felt awesome. Then it happened. My new friend asked if I wanted to tank Dead Mines. There was one slight problem though. I had no clue how to tank. So I did what any responsible new player would do. I looked up a guide on YouTube. I watched a 2-minute how to warrior tank video, came back and told the group, alright, fair warning, this could go horribly wrong. And with that, I charged in. It was chaos and it was awesome. I was losing aggro half the time, hitting taunt like my life depended on it. We fought through all the bosses in the Dead Mines until we finally broke through that massive door. Then I saw it, the iconic Dead Mines ship. It looked huge, glowing lanterns and wooden masts towering overhead. We climbed aboard and ran into my favorite boss so far, Captain Smite. He was relentless, stunning us, swapping weapons mid-fight, but we got him. And then, it was time. Edwin Van Cleef, the man behind everything. The one whose influence stretched all the way back to Northshire. From the Kobolds back in Elwyn Forest, to the Defees in Westfall. This was him. And it was time for me to prove myself. So I charged in, and we fought hard and finally took him down. As we were celebrating, someone said, wait, there's one more. We jumped down and there he was. Cookie, the Murloc boss. We took him out too, and just like that, I leveled up. And that was it. From my first steps in Northshire, to discovering dungeons, meeting new guildmates, and finally putting an end to the Defees. It felt like an end of a chapter. The world felt a little bit bigger now. I had more friends, more experience, and honestly, a stronger connection to the game than ever before. Next time I'll return to Redbridge, properly this time, and start the real adventure. This is only the beginning.